So today I'm going to be talking about The Land in Winter by Andrew Miller. Book a season, baby. Hey. Ooh. Set during the winter of 1962 to 1963 in Bristol, the old big freeze, it was a very frosty time, this novel follows two neighbouring couples. We've got Eric, a doctor, and his wife Irene, and then there's Bill, a farmer, and his wife Rita. The novel very much focuses on the intimate personal lives of the two couples as they feel the kind of isolation that the winter is presenting them, as well as the sort of societal shifts happening in England at that time. Let's mash ourselves into some of those tasty themes. You love the themage. So we're looking at inner turmoil. We have class, gender, and societal transformation. And finally, I would say it's looking at hope, really. This sort of hope amid the bleakness of what's happening around the two couples. Let's slide ourselves right into some of the characters. So first up, we've got Eric. Boo, Eric. So Eric is a GP. He is having an affair, and he's also having a bit of an identity crisis. He's also very, very emotionally detached. Next up, we have Irene, who is Eric's wife, and she is feeling sort of detached from her London roots, but she finds this sort of unexpected friendship with her neighbour Rita. Then we have Bill, a farmer. He's very idealistic, but he's also struggling financially, and it has this sort of inherited, I don't know whether it's quite trauma, but it is sort of like the history of the farm and his family, and this sort of how he's inherited some of that trauma. And finally, we have Rita, a former nightclub dancer who is feeling quite vulnerable in the current situation. She's sort of, if I remember correctly, hearing voices, and again, she sort of sparks up this friendship with Irene. And in essence, that's about it. That's all I can really sort of share with you, because this is a very simple one. It's quite traditional and straightforward in its structure, in its narrative and its plotting. It's quite slow and methodical. It takes its time. We just focus on these two couples as the sort of village freezes over. They feel the isolation, and then they slowly start to, the interpersonal lives, the tensions, the drama between the two couples starts to build. Both of the couples, Rita and Irene, are pregnant, and this sort of adds an extra layer to the sort of emotional sort of frustrations happening between the two couples and the isolation. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's all I can really tell you without giving away any sort of spoilers. So what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked. The first thing I really liked about this novel is the atmosphere that's created. I think Andrew Miller does a wonderful job of sort of setting location and place. He goes into details about sort of how places feel and look, and it really puts you there. And especially as the cold is coming in, the winter is getting worse and worse, and the sort of isolation of these two couples, you really feel it. And I think Andrew Miller did a very good job at getting you there as a reader. If I was to pinpoint one thing that I think got this book onto the Booker Longlist, it would be this aspect. And finally, I thought the themes were handled pretty well throughout, and that the sort of historical big freeze was quite a good backdrop for this novel, both sort of like literally and symbolically all the way through. What didn't I like? I really didn't get on with the pacing in this one. I found it very sluggish, and this one was a bit of a drag for me. I found this novel quite quiet rather than dramatic, and I don't know, I just was not in the mood for that type of novel. And also the sort of what this novel felt like it was setting up felt like it required a lot more action. You might be completely different. You might be really happy with the sort of quiet, ploddy, sluggish pace of this one. But I don't know. I felt like with the two couples, there was so much more scope for exploring more action-oriented plotting rather than it just being a bit of a snooze fest. This novel definitely focuses on atmosphere over story, and that just doesn't really work for me, or it didn't work for me this time around. The next thing I didn't like is some of the sort of backstories, some of the sort of side plots I thought were really lightly sketched. They could have just been, just a lot more robust. And finally, and I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, I felt like reading this, I think this is going to come across really harsh as well, but whilst I was reading it, it felt like Andrew Miller was trying so hard, like really trying to be like, this is going to be a really serious piece of highbrow literary fiction. Like, it's going to be really serious, it's going to be highbrow. And the idea of me knowing that the author is trying for that, when they could have actually written something that was maybe a bit more accessible and a bit more commercial and had a few more sort of action-based dramatic twists happening throughout, would have made this novel infinitely better if you hadn't been, so stuck up your own arse. it just felt really wanky all the way through. Even with the writing and the structuring, everything about this novel screamed of something being really commercially accessible and quite fun and engaging. It still would have had access to all the themes it's exploring. It still would have been able to dive into the characters. But there is just such a want, there's such a try-hard nature with this one to be really highbrow. Oh, I'm only for literary wankers. And I fucking hate that. I hate it. I don't know. I really, because I read a lot of stuff. I read lowbrow, highbrow, and the myriad of things that exist in between those two things. And I don't know. Like, I get joy from both of them, and I always get a lot of joy from the ones that in which the author knows exactly what they're writing, because that's just the way they write, and that brings them passion, that brings them enjoyment. That's what they love doing, and that's the work that they create, and they can't really create anything else because that's just who they are. And I get absolute joy from that. I tend to turn off a bit when it feels like someone's trying to do one or the other, and that's what this novel felt like to me. It's got some really, really excellent aspects to it, but it just felt very try hard, and I kind of hated it a little bit for it. So there you go, that was my likes and my dislikes. I know I went in pretty hard on my dislikes, and I know I've mentioned the word hate for certain aspects of it, but that's only the aspect of what I thought the novel was trying to do. I don't want to take away that I thought this novel was very nuanced in parts, and I did think it was like really well written in how it created atmosphere. And I do truly believe that this novel has landed on the book of Longlist for that ability to capture atmosphere, which isn't easy to do. So, again, I know I sounded like I was being really, really harsh there, and I hated this novel. I just was a bit disappointed because I thought it could have been so much more had the author not wanted it to so badly be one thing. And if I can sense that in the reading process, I think there's something off about it. So I'm landing on a 2-star out of 5 for this one. I thought it was all right, and it's getting the 2 stars mainly for the atmosphere that it creates and for a pretty decent-ish job at its characters. So there you go, that was The Land in Winter. I'm not going to lie, from seeing people talk about this one, I was expecting a lot more, but maybe it was just like the wrong time, wrong place for me to read it. Maybe if it was, December, I might have got into this one a little bit more, but I wasn't in the mood for this type of novel, and I was able to really see the things that frustrated me in it a lot more because of that. But anyway, when I come to do my sort of ranking later down the road, or just before the sort of shortlist is announced, I'm purely going to do what I always do, and I'm just going to rely on my ability to what is resonating with me in the novel, ignoring my initial review and just seeing what sort of stands out to then decide where I might place it. But yeah, overall, a bit disappointed in this one. What did you think of it though? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please let me know in the comments below. As always, I hope you're well, and I hope you're enjoying whatever you might be reading.